But let's start that over. I want to get us on a two shot on this. Let me take the chat down so they can see your face there. This is real important because I want to clip this one. So I said to you, we should do away with Title 4D, and now you're explaining to me what that really is.
Yeah, Title 4D is the enforcement arm for our welfare system. So, we had welfare, and so many kids were being born out of wedlock, and so the welfare rolls were going up really high. So they created a public child support system, Title 4D in 75, in order to recoup welfare tax dollars that were going out, basically. But what I was basically saying is that if you got rid of this system, they would lose a lot of money in how they continue to finance the welfare system and all of that. And the real problem too is, and you got to think about all the money that goes out for welfare, and childcare is a big part of that. That's why this Minnesota story, the quality, the Leering Center and all that stuff, that's all subsidized money. That's welfare money. That's for parents, and by parents, what they mean is mothers who can't, aren't married or got divorced or whatever and can't afford childcare because they're trying to put them back to work. And millions of dollars goes out for that. But if you removed all these programs, basically what you're going to be confronted with, DL, is it's going to be like walking in a third world country. You're going to see all the poor people out, and you're going to see all these homeless people out in front of your face. So it's like, if they do that suddenly, they will be confronted with this problem. At least in the short term. It could be better. I think it would be better in the long term, because then people would start making different decisions about marriage if there was not any of these safety nets, or there wasn't a government sanctioned wealth transference arm in the form of child support and family law, especially, as far as that goes. Then people would think twice about leaving, but right now, since there's just so much just extra on it, if you just took it out, it would be like walking in a third world country where the sidewalks would be lined with just people that.
So you're saying it would be like walking down Hollywood Boulevard?
Yeah. But it's pretty bad now. I get
it. But you see where I'm. When I discovered the rebate, that 66% goes, and it just blew my mind. So I'm like, well, right there's the incentive to go in and order as much child support as humanly possible.
Well, yeah, because the states basically, so the states are incentivized to basically transform their family law codes to be in line with what the federal government expects. Because in order to get funding from the federal government, they have to meet certain qualifications, and they have to meet up to certain standards for their family law system. So it's like, you can't get welfare dollars unless you have a child support program in your state, basically. If you don't have that, then you can't have welfare federal monies coming to you. Then there's performance measures, basically, about how much child support you collect. And based off those monies, you get certain incentive payments. The state gets incentive payments from the federal government for certain things. Like, it used to be, so when the 75 child support program first came out, it was just for recouping the welfare funds. Then later on, they changed it and they said, hey, why don't you guys start advertising your services to families who aren't on welfare? And the more that you do, we'll give you incentive payments for this and all these kinds of things. So what happened is what was really a welfare program came out and barged into America's middle class. And then when people realized, hey, we can avail ourselves of this system and just walk in, I don't even need an attorney, and I can get the wealth transference mechanism going. It just changed. It really just added a lot more fuel to the fire.
Damn. So I am right in my thought process is like, that is where the money is. That is the catalyst for every judge in America to order as much. Because I had a friend of mine who went in with his then wife, but they were going through a divorce. They had, children involved. There was a child involved. Mm-hmm. They worked everything out in mediation. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is how the money is going to get moved.
They did it in private family law.
Yeah. Well, you know how you have to go before you see the judge, you have to have you go talk to the mediators or whatever. So they did all that. They got before the judge, and the judge says, okay, ma'am, would you like me to order child support? And she says, no, Your Honor, we did that right there. And the judge must have spent 4 or 5 minutes trying to convince her to say, I want child support. And I never understood that until I found about, found out
I,
about that kickback.
I'll tell you why. Because, all of these states have what's called the guideline calculator. So that's the calculator you punch it into. That's part of, in order to have a welfare program, you have to have in your family law code. It's got to be up to this certain standard for a child support program. So in order for her to refuse child support, basically the judge has to say, this is what you're entitled to from guideline, basically, and she has to refuse it. But what you're talking about is an incentive, because if they give her child support, and what they'll say is you can just take it to the agency and they will actually they will enforce it for you. So they'll load up the order and they'll get the money from dad and give it to you. When they do that, the amount of money they get from dad gets logged in with the state system. Then when they go back at the end of the fiscal year and report these numbers to the federal government, it looks like they did collect more child support, because it's like, look, we got dad's $2,500 payment here. Look at all this child support we collected. We want a bigger budget next year. And some of that money, also goes into the state's general fund. So the state's general fund, they can then use it for other things that aren't child support related. So it's interesting how that works.
All that needs to change, in my opinion, bro. All of that needs to change, because now we see the play. And that, that's the old adage, man, follow the money. So it's not about what's in the child's best interest after all. It's really about how much money we can get from the taxpayers via the government. That's what it sounds like to me. Am I wrong in thinking
they're definitely incentivized to perform in terms of child support collected, orders established, all these kinds of things. Paternity. That's why it's like we need some guy's name on the books for the dad. That doesn't necessarily mean we're interested so much in who the biological father is, but we're interested in making sure kids that were born out of wedlock have a dad on the books. And if a kid was born in the wedlock, well, we don't want to disturb that, because we don't want to now have a fatherless kid out here that we got to figure out who the dad is to be able to charge child support. So, yeah.
I can't wait for you to write your book, bro. I'm gonna be in line to get that book. I can't wait. You know what I'm saying, bro? Because that's the real game right there. And
it is, yeah.
Damn. I mean, I'm just sitting here letting that process. It's 100% a play. And so what would happen if all of the states did what Florida did and just went to a default 50-50 situation?
I think what they have
that
is
affects
the Kentucky, I think Florida might be doing it, but I heard it with Kentucky, the rebuttable. So they have a default 50-50, but it's a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 custody. So that would in some regards lower here's what they do with child support. Child support and custody are completely separate. And it's like they do that on purpose. Child support's all taxpayer funded. The dad's going to go in and be like, hey, she's not letting me see my kid. The child support agency is not going to help you out with that. They're going to say, go across the street and file for a custody case. So what they're saying is leave our public taxpayer funded office and go into the private pay family law courts that you have to pay out of your own pocket for, and is not taxpayer funded, and fight for custody. If custody is lower for the dad, that results in a higher guideline amount of child support. So again, there's an incentive there to not care about custody, because that leads to a higher child support order. And if you can get that paid, then you've collected more child support at the end of the fiscal year. If it's 50-50 and your dad's still making more money, he's still going to pay some child support. But if it's zero, it's going to be higher. Though 50-50, you still got to pay an annoying amount,
Yeah, I mean, like in my situation, even if I got 50-50 custody, which I was unable to get, and we're talking 6 years in court, all that money, like it ruined me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Even if I had 50-50 custody, I still would have been paying $1,000 a month.
Yeah, and that's because of the difference of the income earning between mom and dad, basically. Yeah, so even with 50-50, I mean, a lot of people will fight for that because obviously they want to see their kids, but you still have to pay something. That was another odd thing too, because a lot of people, when they come in the agency and they'd say, I don't understand, we have 50-50 custody, like why do I have to pay? And then I'd have to explain this whole 2 houses and the kid going between them thing again.
I mean, it's like this the game, bro, and you caught up. And that's the bottom line. Is like this is how they making their money, man. And you gotta pay. That's the way it is. I get the two houses thing, but that's all BS in my opinion. In my opinion, it should be 50-50 custody. Mom takes care of the child when she has them. Dad takes care of the child when they have them. And if there's some sort of shortfall, that's when you go to court and you have to prove to the court that I need $1,200 so little Bobby or little Jill can go play softball or ballet. And then go ahead.
Well, I would say, at the very least, I think the public system for child support should only concern welfare cases and recouping welfare money.
How would that change the broader picture if that were the case?
Because private families who aren't on welfare couldn't have, unless they went on welfare, then they can go in there and they can only collect for the periods that were owed under welfare. Because when a child's on welfare, the child support rights go to the state away from the mom. So the mom agrees to get welfare and assigns the child support rights to the county, basically.
So okay, let's paint a picture here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's 50-50 custody. Let's say mom is making $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Dad is making $35,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
50-50 custody. Dad is on welfare. He's getting assistance for food and whatnot.
With the child?
And he has child 50%. Let's say
okay.
I guess you have to.
If you're
he
50-50, you can apply for welfare if you have 50% custody. So they will give you the welfare if it's 50-50.
So what would mom have to pay because dad is getting welfare?
So I couldn't tell you exactly. Like I could pull up the calculator and punch that in right now.
Well, we're just playing with numbers.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah, no worries.
Ballpark.
Let me do that right now. It probably would be around what the $100,000 guy was paying, but I just want to see because
wow, now you're curious.
yeah. The thing is the 50-50 custody, and he's making $35,200, so there's a split there. But I just have to look at it because now it's gonna bother me. Oh gosh, guideline calculator, agree and proceed. One child. And so mom's going to be parent one because this is genderless. And we're going to do this by annual salary. And you said mom's making 200 or 250K?
Yeah, you pick one. Let's say 250. Let's make it big. Yeah, 250.
Okay, 250. Dad is making 35. And if for the purpose of the example, if he's making 35K, I think that's above the welfare limit. Let's just say he's making
not in California. 0. I think in California he would qualify. I think it's up to 50.
Maybe. I mean, it's probably higher now. So let's just do fine 35. They're gonna run you through the calculator, and then it's 50-50. And this is a very simple.
Oh. Yeah, real bait. No extra details. Just
Exactly. Sorry. Okay. So just in 50-50 split custody.
Yep.
Okay, let's do that.
And if you have to, make him custodial parent. If you have to. Okay, I don't know if they'll ask for that.
Looking at that, so with 50-50 custody, that's $1,518 a month. Which
she would have to pay.
She would have to pay that. Which isn't, as bad as the 200,000 guy. I think the gold digger clause goes in there a little bit, but it's also because he's making 35, and the big thing is the 50-50 custody.
You said 18, 1,500.
Yeah, 1,518 a month.
18, and the state gets that money.
No. So what would happen is the amount that was expended in welfare would get paid first, and then the leftover amount would go to dad. But the state gets to say that it collected $1,518, and that looks good on the performance measures, which then get used for the next year's budget and fiscal year, basically. How much they get from the federal government.
So with your knowledge of how the system works, let me ask you this. With your knowledge of how the system works, how should the system work to benefit families not on welfare? Is that even possible? Is it possible to what should be done by our society to trash this garbage plan? Because what they're doing is just taking money from America. It sounds to me like just another tax.
Yeah, like basically what's happened is there always used to be a system of public family law because you always had people who would pretty much burden the rest of the community with their care to
Yes.
some extent. Whether it was, the church charity or however it was paid. Or, they would just live a very tough life. But, there were, especially when it came to children, is what I'm trying to say, Then what happened is public family law became so emboldened, basically, that it crossed over into the zone of private family law. And it basically welfareized our original private family law system to where it's like normal middle class Americans are subject to what's essentially a welfare system for everybody, basically. And it's just like, I am one of these guys, like, I don't know if we can go backwards in time. Like, if we cut the welfare system, there's going to be some very painful periods for a lot of people. And that means homeless children out on the streets too, and all these kinds of things. Maybe they would finally go with whoever the provider is, because that's who can actually support the kids, right?
Right.
But I think for a start is, if you're not going to push back on the welfare part of family law and put it back in its place to only apply to those people, then at the very least, lean into it more, and you should have a taxpayer-funded custody system for fathers to at least get back in their kids' lives. Why is it that one parent gets to go in there, not have to pay anything for child support, but the other one, when they want to see their kid, they have to pay thousands of dollars in order to do that? That might help at least for some mitigation, but it would still be a huge step towards probably a socialist type of living, which not a lot of people want to do. If you really want to go in the other direction, you have to punish people for breaking up their families, and you have to disincentivize people from having kids outside of wedlock, which means you'd have to, really limit the welfare, or you'd have to look at custody differently and say, okay, well, whatever parent actually makes the money, the kid needs to be there, and you have a legal obligation to take care of that kid. That's what it was before. Like, you can go to jail for not taking care of your child. So however you figure that out, then the child better be in your household. Or, if you're going to get divorced. So a lot of this is wrapped into family law, because my problem is you can't just excise a giant program with millions of dollars running into it and not see immediate devastating consequences, like right in front of your face, basically. Because we're paying all these people to stay out of the way, you can say, through welfare. So if you're going to take a small step back, at least limit the federal child support program's power and say, okay, this only applies again to welfare cases. The minute they're
So
not
you're
on
saying
welfare
right there,
anymore,
then do away with Title 4D then, or modified heavily.
Title 4D would still be there, but it would be how it originally started, which was just to recoup the welfare funds, basically. And then you'd have to take away incentive payments for states. Then you would basically say, hey, listen, collect only the welfare monies, at least to start with. It would still be kind of a crappy system, to be honest with you, because there's still family law and all these other issues, and people can go on and off welfare, basically. So it's just so wrapped up into each other. But the problem really is that family law has been taken over by welfare. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're going to push back on the welfare system, you would then have to change family law again, because the family law system is the welfare system at this point in time.
Wow, man. I mean, because in my mind,
it's
I'm
so
like
many
Forrest
things
Gump.
rolled up into one. It's like, okay, limit 4D, cut funding for 4D. It's like, okay, well, you can do that, but you're gonna have, welfare at the bottom will probably fall out of that, basically, because you're not recouping a lot of the funds that you otherwise need. And then there's going to be a lot of people who aren't getting that money to at least keep them off the streets, as far as children are concerned, is what I'm talking about here. So you'd either have to just keep paying for that somehow, which they're not going to want to do, because they're going to be like, this is costing the taxpayer. That's how they sold child support in the 90s, was that it cost the taxpayers so much. So they're like, let's get the money from these deadbeat dads, basically. So yeah, it would, if you could put the genie back in the bottle, it would be good in the long run if that's gone, because then people would value marriage and look at it differently. If, the alternative was being homeless.
Okay, well, okay. Because I'm like, all right, I got you here tonight. We're going to figure this out, and then we're going to somehow we're going to sell this to the Republicans and the Democrats. We're going to make this law. But okay, so here's the deal. Could you somehow split the non-welfare families from the welfare families. Could that be done? So in other words, if you have a couple, they have a child, both parents are individually earning more than the median. So they will go to a different court.
Well, see, there is no different court now. There used to be a different court, but then
we're making it up. Like, could that be done?
Yes, that would be private family law court, and there would be more dexterity there for the judge to decide how we should take care of this divorce. They should have a completely different court system from the welfare one. The problem now is that when you go to the private family law court as a non-welfare family, they use the same welfare calculator to do all the math to decide how much you're going to pay.
Right.
So,
and they do that because they need to max out so they can get a bigger rebate. So that 66%.
Yeah, so when they go to the federal government, they can say, look how well we performed in collecting child support for this many families.
Give us more
basically. Money. Yeah, exactly. So please, give us a better budget for the next year. But when it comes to actual, non-welfare families and say they're going through a divorce, they should have a completely different family law system that applies to them. That could be something that's more at-fault based. What you do have is a revolving door of people there are going to be some people who are on welfare and then they get off, then they go back on. What we do now is for those time periods, they're classified as welfare owed monies, and then the other side is private owed monies. So the money that we collect for the welfare time periods, a portion of that or all of it goes back to the federal government, or it could go to the state, just depending on how they divvy up the money. Then there's the private, which is where, okay, this is the non-welfare time period, and that would go to the custodial party or whoever the money was owed to for that time. So they do divvy it up. They know how much is welfare and how much is non-welfare. The problem is they calculate the number pretty much all the same. So it's like you have just this very rudimentary system. You have like a dump truck coming to move dirt when you should have more finer brushes looking at something, excavating what the problem is here instead of just
you should be sifting through it instead of just
and that's private family law, and that costs that there's a charge for that, costs money for the court's time, and that's why private family law is so expensive with custody. Child support is just designed to be this fast thing.
If I could jump in here real quick, so if you did have the private family law system, so you had the non-welfare.
See, this is what's really confusing about it. We technically do have a private family law court. So your county has a private family law court, and then it has the child support publicly funded court. The problem is they've mixed all the laws up to where the private family law court judge is going to say, okay, let's see what guideline child support is, which is the welfare calculator, essentially.
So it should be two calculators. So with this, if you had the non-welfare cases going through that system, wouldn't that then be the incentive for those two individuals to just work it out themselves? Because, like, look, we got to pay for this.
Yeah, otherwise they got to go through private family law, and it's going to take time. And they should be looking at it with a lot more dexterity and a lot more of a finer tooth comb to say what does justice actually look like in this case for these two people who are possibly looking at divorce, versus we don't have time for justice. We just need to give you the Happy Meal cookie cutter judgment here based off the calculator. And it used to be like that. There used to be a private family law, which is you'd go into court and it would take time and it would take money, but they would get to something that was more fair. Then it just became this, we have to just get this out mass industrial style. We got to get all these Twinkies made and just bam, packaged, put on the shelf. We need all these child support orders fast. We don't have time to do this, basically.
What's funny? I'm sitting here thinking, and for all you red pillars out here watching, for all you bottom 80 guys, you invisible dudes, even you top 20 guys, this is the real red pill information y'all need to be studying, because this is more than likely going to happen when you finally become visible to women and women want to be with you and you guys want to sleep together. And she promises you that she's, I'm on the IUD or I'm on the pill or I'm on whatever, you don't need to wear that no more. This is what's going to happen. So you really need to understand how this works. There's so many red pill guys want to skip this part. It's like, you cannot skip this part. This is what you need to know.
That's the scary part. And what you mentioned earlier about always winning. That's the part, where you get too comfortable. That's what I mean with the Matador thing, and you step in a giant pile of poo, And then I saw news recently where Trump I don't know if it was true. Someone sent it to me, but the Trump administration was looking at being able to revoke passports as far as child
Yeah.
support goes. Now they can go after your passport already. I think the difference is if you have a passport, say it expires in 10 years, if they go after and they put a hold on the passport, your passport will work till it expires, right? But the revoking of a passport is different. That means like from day one, your passport is literally revoked, and then you have to go and pay this off and then apply for another one. So, it doesn't seem like the Trump administration is concerned with changing much as far as this goes. But
No, I think
neither of the administrations have been. So, because again, the problem with it is it's just not an easy sell. It's this. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, the minute they pull out one of these things from the system, it's going to look horrible when there's a bunch of, homeless kids out there and stuff like that.
Man, do you know who the fat electrician is? Have you ever heard of him?
No. I haven't. It's a YouTuber?
YouTuber, very successful YouTuber. I'll send you some of his videos. He focuses on military and like military history. So like Audie Murphy, Congressional Medal of Honor winner, Sergeant Alvin York, and like one of the first, congressional, well, not one of the first, but Congressional Medal of Honor winner in World War I. When he talks about these like the first fighter aces and all these like tough dudes who went and did these amazing things in combat, almost all of them had the same story. They came from a huge family. They had no money. These kids would go out, like Alvin York would go out with his little, 22 rifle and would shoot possums and squirrels. And that's how they ate. And the kid was shooting so good, like he just couldn't miss. And went on to become one of America's greatest heroes. And again, they were all poor. They didn't know who their dads were when most of the time. Like mom wasn't really bringing any money, or the parents were home. They just weren't making enough money. Kids dropping out of high school. So when you say like it's going to be trouble, I'm thinking like, well, maybe we'll just get the next generation of great American heroes.
Yeah, that's a great perspective on that. That's true. I mean, yeah, and I did say this earlier, but like in the interim short period, it will be very rough. But people are going to have to start taking things more seriously. Can I can't show the comment on your screen, but I can show it on mine.
Yeah.
But I have this person worked with me at child support, and he's been there for way longer than I have. But he says he worked with me, and he says, I hate the current setup. 50-50 should be default. Paternity testing should be required prior to any voluntary paternity declaration. And the child support figure should not be based on either party's income. So it's like that would do away with the whole calculator as we know it today. It would be based off need of the child. So you'd actually have to find justice in the situation. But the problem is like they have this very cookie cutter industrialized version of child support, which is just about getting the order the fastest so we could start getting the money the fastest. Meanwhile, you're still trying to fight for custody. You know what I mean? And now child support's coming out of there.
I mean, if it's default 50-50, and then again, let's say let's use, California, like you're in, Los Angeles County. The median cost to raise a child in Los Angeles County is X. We're just making up numbers here. Let's say it's $300,000.
That's what should be the cap on the child support. The cap should be no more than what welfare is expended on the child support. Like if welfare only is going to give you this many hundreds of dollars, then if that's the max there, then if you're going to no fault leave your husband, or the provider, whether it's woman or man, and you're going to take the children on a no fault, you should not get more than what welfare is going to give, and they should not charge that person more. And if you can't handle it, then fine, give it back to the actual household that you broke up. You know what I mean?
Right.
With the person who actually makes the money at that point. So, that's what I mean. There's so many things wrapped up. It's like there's the no fault. There's the incentives built into the child support system and how the state is funded, from federal dollars. In order to do this. So it's like pulling out one of these blocks from this whole thing, it can create a bad short-term disaster. But you're right, in the long term, it would be better because people would be a lot more serious about reproduction.
Yeah, it changes the game. So,
yeah.
So people in that field, I mean, this conversation has been had, or people talk about this, because my thing is, if it costs $300,000 from age 0 to 18 to raise a child where you are, then
300
each
now.
parent,
Huh? I remember when it was
just making up
250.
numbers. Yeah, just making up
It's
numbers.
about 250 the last time I looked at it, but that was probably, almost a year ago.
So each parent, in my mind, will be responsible for $125,000, right?
Yeah, you could say that, but the thing is the government's looking at, you have a kid right now that needs to be fed that they'd rather not have on the welfare rolls, so to speak. So even if you paid the $150,000 this month and said, okay, I paid my 150 and the money all blew in the wind tomorrow, and now you have this hungry kid here, they're still going to be like, you have an obligation to support this child, and that 150 didn't count. But I hear what you're saying. The 300,000, I think, figures in college and stuff like that.
Hold on. Wait. You mean to tell me the government would say, if I gave the government all of the money that they ordered me to pay in child support up front?
You can't pay child support up front. Like, look, I get what you're
Houston,
saying.
we
In
have
the
a
what if
problem.
scenario. Yeah, there's no such thing. There was a story, I think it was like about a year ago. I remember Coach covering it, and it was about this guy who, it was like some viral child support story. Yeah, he was like, I'm going to pay $60K up front in child support, but there's no such thing as doing that. If you do that, the rest of the money above the month is just a gift to the other person at that point. Because again, there's a living, breathing child, and they're going to say, no, we want the money on time every month in order for this child. Otherwise, if you pay $60K up front and the money blows in the wind, they're not going to be like, well, too bad, you shouldn't have spent that, mom. They're going to be like, oh, there's a starving child here, let's get the money from dad.
But when I hear that, in my mind, I'm thinking the government is responsible for that money blowing in the wind. I mean, because it's like the government is forcing people to pay this money.
I think I know what the issue is. That 60,000, and then especially in that example, that would go into the custodial party's hands. If it's welfare, if it's money that's owed to welfare, they can never collect 60,000 from you. They can only collect what's been expended. So you wouldn't be able to just give 60,000 to the government because they wouldn't have the right to just take that money. The 60,000 up front is giving it to the child's mother, basically, and saying, here's 60K. But that doesn't count as far as like the child support system goes.
And Brother Damon's in the building. What's good, fam? He was asking, was that Anthony Edwards we were talking about earlier? I don't think we were talking about Anthony Edwards, but I think Anthony Edwards wanted to pay his child support up front, all of it. Now, could you do that through? Well, damn.
Maybe it was Anthony Edwards. Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. Was that football or basketball? I can't even remember now.
I can't remember. But now I'm starting to really understand the point you were making about everything being all weaved in together. So again, because when I'm talking, what I'm noticing in this conversation is I'm coming from a point of view that I'm talking about two parents who are financially capable of raising a kid on their own if they had to. Mm-hmm. You're coming from, all right, one of the parents is getting assistance. And now it's like, I see what you're saying. Cause if I'm dealing with a woman, we have a child, we're not married, we're both making $100,000 a year.
Yeah,
we had a child.
That would be a better place to, if you were going to have a child with somebody, I would go that direction versus with the direction of someone not making money. And then you're not cohabitating anymore, and now she goes directly on welfare. If she's making 100K and you're making 100K, it's going to be a lot simpler in court. Custody is going to be the primary thing to focus on, basically.
And the court will still want to issue some sort of order because they want to get some money, even if it's just a little bit. Maybe it's like, all right, you're getting $600 a month out of one of these two.
Well,
because of the guidelines.
If it's 50-50 and you both make 100,000, child support would be effectively zero. The guideline would spit out zero because it would say you both make the same money. So you got the same lifestyle in each house and you each have the child to half the amount of time. Child support ordered is zero. There's no welfare involved, right? Welfare means someone probably lost their job or whatever, but you're both making 100K. You both have the kids 50-50. You both pay for your own child care in that time. Then the order, truly the guideline would say it's zero.
Can we run one more guideline, brother? Would that be okay?
I got it up right here.
Can we run a guideline where, let's say parent one is making...
my bad. I got to pull it back up. Don't worry. But yeah, go and tell me the scenario.
Let's say parent one is making $175,000.
Okay.
Parent two
and this is
California. Okay, yes,
Just
let's definitely
be
use
clear
California.
for the viewers.
For
And how
we're
many
doing
children?
One child.
One child. Okay.
Parent two is making $135,000.
Okay. Just real quick though, can you just sorry, I forgot how much you said for parent.
175
one.
for parent one. 175 for
Okay.
parent one.
175K for parent one annually. Okay. And parent two?
135. Let's say 135.
135. Okay.
One child, 50
One
50
child,
split.
50-50. All right, let's do that. All right.
I'm guessing I'm thinking parent one is gonna have to pay $300 a month.
Might be
I'm
a
guessing.
little higher than that, but you
think?
might actually
Okay.
be right. You might actually be right. Let's see.
And guys, if you're watching this, we're not putting in
less.
all of the
Look,
information.
it's less. 171 a month. So this is
171.
yeah. This is 50-50 with 175 versus 135 annual. Yeah, so 170. So see, and this is why I'm always making a big deal about like looking at what the other person has on paper, because when it gets to this situation, that's 50-50. Now, you will see, let's see, let's just put in 0% custody. So say one person has the child 100% of the time. Just to show you what the number would be there.
0% custody for one.
Then
It's
it's
175.
then it goes from 171 to $1,802. See, now it's closer to the guy that was making 100K. He would have been
Right.
paying a little over 2,000. But since you have 0% custody and you're making 175, the other person's income, I think, factors in a little bit, and they're high income too. Otherwise, I think it. Let me just double check.
I mean, that's
But
still
yeah.
pretty high. I would.
But
I
you
would
see
say,
how big of a difference it went from 50% to 0,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
$171 to, and if
Was
they
it
were making,
1,800?
so listen, if it was 0% custody, it would be 1,800 in that scenario. Now, if you're making 175K and she's making 0 and it's 0% custody, then you would pay $2,419.
Damn.
Even with and it's still 0% custody. So her income, even with 0% custody, still has a factor into what the fact that she has income, even though it's 0 custody, you would still pay less than if she makes no money. See that?
The system is so jacked up. So this is how I would do it. And
Mhm.
guys, I'm nobody. I'm a retired air traffic controller who is sitting in his loft talking to a camera. All right. So I'm nobody, guys. Shaw is the pro. Like Shaw is the pro. So, but here's the thing. I would say if you had no marriage, we're talking about a custody case, no one's been married.
Yeah, you guys just had a child together outside of wedlock.
You guys just had a child together.
Mhm.
You both earn over the median household income for America, not individual, but household. Let's say you both earn, which
Over
today is like
70K
right
or
around.
something. Yeah.
Well, I think it's up to like almost 86 now, but it's still
Okay.
under 90,000. It's still under 90K, but
Okay.
it's still real low considering the median house is what, 425,000. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But if individually you earn over that benchmark, then you come to court. It's 50-50 custody. There is no money changing hands.
Yeah, there shouldn't
That's
be a
what I
need.
think should happen.
Yeah, and that's
There's no
kind of
need.
what Orem was saying earlier, because he was saying it shouldn't be based off of the parents' incomes, but yeah, then it would be based off need for the child, because what you're saying. I mean, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth. But what you're saying is you're over that minimum amount of what a child needs at the minimum. You're over that poverty line and you even overshot it a bit too, where each household has about that. So yeah, it really isn't, because at that point each parent's lifestyle is their own, and the child's needs are met. So what you're basically discussing is a needs-based system for that,
Yes.
instead of a lifestyle-based system where they do that. That's always been one of my biggest sort of hangups with it too, is that it's based off this lifestyle thing. This is what incentivizes the predatory sort of behavior amongst people. It's like, if it wasn't that way and you weren't entitled to someone's lifestyle, then they would think about wanting to leave or not. And if they did leave, which they're free to do, you don't get to leave with the lifestyle. That's what so much of these people are, unhappy about when it comes to this space.
Yes. And then in the same scenario, let's say let's change the scenario up a little bit. So
Mhm.
now you have one earner you got one person who's making, twice or making. I'm getting tired. You got one person
Don't
who's
worry.
making more than the median household income, right?
Okay.
So that person is
maybe
making
like
basically two.
90,
He's basically earning for two people, right? So you got one person.
90,000.
Now you say let's call
Because
it
you
90.
said a little above, right? Or,
Yeah,
how
so let's
much?
call it 90. So
90,
let's say
okay.
you're making above that. It was like I think it's around 86. But you're like,
Okay.
so you got one person who's making more than the median household income.
Okay.
The
So parent
other
one,
person,
90,000.
right? And the other parent, right? The other parent is making the median individual income. So the other parent is making like 50,000, 55,000, something like that.
55.
I would say in that case, we go to the cap. So it's like, all right, the parent who's making the money, it's a 50-50 split. The parent who's making the money is going to pay up to the cap, the child support cap. So that's when you look in, all right, it costs, we'll say 200,000 now. It costs $200,000 to raise a child from 0 to 18. That parent is responsible for half of that, $100,000 to be paid monthly for 18 years.
Well, yeah, the 200,000 figure I think is above just the base needs of the child. I think that figures in a lot more. Just to be clear about that. You know what I mean? So I think that figures in more than the base needs. So I think that figure is actually kind of high, but I understand the logic behind what you're saying. That would be the max they can get from you for child support. If you were, I will tell you this: if it was a 90, if one parent was making 90,000, the other was making 55, and it was 0% custody, parent one would pay $1,383 a month. So, I don't have my calculator, but if you were gonna do the math, and we're assuming from 0 years of age,
yeah, from 0 to 18 years of age,
yeah. So 12 times 1,383. So that's 1 year is 16,596 times 18 is 298,728. So that's far above your cap of 200,000. So your cap I see is still less, and I'm still saying that that's even above the needs, but at least the basic needs. But
and see that's my whole point, because we know what it costs, and the government has their numbers. They do what every 7 to 10 years. Ag does that. They put the numbers out. Department of Agriculture, I think.
I'm not sure about the frequency of how often they do that.
I think it's every 7 to 10 years. The last time I checked, it was a long time ago when I checked that. But I mean, they might be doing it more often now. I don't know. But here's the thing: if you looked it up right now, if you type in your computer right now,
how much does it cost to raise a child in? You want to do California, since we're using
just
California
put
guidelines?
How much does it cost to raise a child in America? And now they'll give a break, or you can say per state. They give breakdowns. I want to say Maine is the most expensive place to raise a child. I think 0 to 18, I think it's like 300,000. That's the most expensive place in America, if I'm not mistaken.
Raising it, this is just the AI overview, guys, so maybe we shouldn't take it too seriously. Raising a child in California is among the most expensive in the U.S., with annual costs averaging over $30,000 to $35,000 a child as of 25. Total costs over 18 years can exceed $500,000 in high-cost areas like San Francisco and San Jose. So that still seems a little high. I mean, San Francisco, if you take an average of that, it's probably going to be maybe like 400,000, which I still think is pretty high. But let's just say, okay, it's 400,000 in California. I still think your 300,000, I think the 250 to 300,000 is more realistic, because I think this stuff factors in lifestyle. You know what I mean? Versus base needs. And it's like, if you're going to destroy your household, then lifestyle shouldn't be more than what's above the basic needs of the child.
Because you always come from it's a divorce involved, and I'm always coming from, no, these are just two people who met and had a baby. They were never married.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with, if it was a marriage involved, I agree with what you're saying. There should be a cost to that. And I think that's why the divorce rate is so high to begin with. But when two people just have a kid, and especially in a society where one of those two people got to choose.
Well, see, and this is the most important thing. That's why I keep looking at the front end of marriage so much, because it's like what deal you're entering into is going to determine a lot of this stuff on the back end. But the TradCon mythos here is the man is the penultimate provider. The woman shouldn't have to worry about anything. Should be a stay-at-home mom, frankly, ideally for them. So you're entering into this deal where you're agreeing to pay everything, and she's not working or doing that, so you're going to get it shafted here in court. You have to expect that going in at this point. It's like at this point, I'm like, guys, you can't. There's no more surprises now. The prior generations were the guys that got surprised. I think they did their part to tell everybody what it was like. At this point, you got to start looking at it more pragmatically and strategically.
Yeah.
You know, about if you're going to do this, because you know, people do want to have kids. I'd like to believe that and think about that. It's like, okay, what am I gonna? You know, we were talking earlier here about how everybody in their little fantasy has to put up with some reality. You know what I mean? And it's like you might have to make some concessions in some points in order to find somebody who might bring a little bit more to the table to mitigate for some of these disasters. And if it's going to end up in a divorce, which is a high likelihood it would, then at least the divorce could be smoother. Then you guys can go about your lives if you want to be a matador again or